Part 60. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 592. The result of the matter is self-evident. The young boss did not come out that night. Lily followed him in from a distance and took a few photos before exiting with a sneer. Every other day, she would use her voice changer. Pretending to be a man's voice, she called the young boss from a public phone and threatened him to go to the bar. The photos she took that day were also couriered to the boss. At first, the boss had to endure it for the sake of reputation. Half a month later, he was infected with AIDS, and knowing this result, Lily naturally no longer had to threaten him. His family and friends stayed away from him, and the disease quickly brought him down. Within 2 months, the man died at home. At the funeral, one of the 5 young men also took a leave of absence from the army. This time, Lily did not use other methods to deal with him. Instead, she used the same greeting that the young man used on the original owner's stupid father to catch him. The opportunity for him to be alone blocked him on a small road. At first, this young man who joined the army did not take Lily seriously, but Lily has been practicing martial arts for nearly a year now, and she has much more experience in fighting with others than this young man. She had a weapon in her hand again. Although the young man resisted hard, he could not escape in the end. He had begged before he died. Every time the steel pipe hit him, he could not help but shed tears. Come, but the more he pleads, the less likely Lily will let him go. The father of the original owner must have begged before he died, but none of these teenagers let him go. Lily didn't stop until the man died. The body was found in a large garbage dump. The young man was beaten beyond recognition. Mixed in a group of animal offal, I don't know how many days later, it has already emitted an unpleasant stench, because the body was found in the garbage dump. In addition, the animal offal had already destroyed the scene, and the police could hardly find any clues, if it weren't for the fact that the young man never returned to the army. Thus, the DNA comparison proved the identity of this person, and I am afraid that it is not even possible to discover who the deceased was. The newspaper published a reward offered by the police and family members, hoping to find clues to the murderer. However, Lily was very cautious when she started, and the case ended up being left unsolved. On the revenge card, all 4 lists have been ticked off, and the only one left is Dusyarui. The winter in the imperial capital is particularly cold this year. It was only November, and it started to rain continuously. When the drizzle was blown by the wind, it hurt like a knife cutting flesh. When Buletin Junhuan asked someone to drive Lily to the downstairs of the company, he just opening the car door, the wind rushed in. She subconsciously shrank her shoulders. Before she could close the car door, 2 people holding umbrellas and wearing thick coats passed by. When she saw the car parked here, she subconsciously turned her head and glanced here. The woman is still talking. Arui, when you go to work today, please hand over your leave request first. Don't worry. Things will be solved. Where are the ghosts in this world? When Lily heard this familiar voice, eyes narrowed. Du Xiaming's pale face with a hint of coldness and calmness appeared in front of her. Standing next to her was Du Xiarui. The 2 siblings were walking side by side at this time. They had seen Du Xiarui accidentally since the last time. This was the second time Lily really saw him, and her fingertips trembled slightly. A murderous intention surged from her heart, and Lily quickly clenched her palms into a ball. When the 2 siblings saw Lily, they obviously remembered who she was. Du Xiaming was very angry with Lily because of the last car accident, so he was particularly impressed by her. As for Du Xiarui, it was because he was the deputy director of the company last time. I have seen Lily in front of the main office. With an appearance like the original owner, it is impossible for people to forget her easily. It was only when the 2 siblings saw Lily getting out of the car that they noticed the logo on the car. Obviously they all regarded Lily as a woman kept/raised by a rich man, and the two siblings had a look of disdain on their faces. Du Xiaoming frowned and snorted coldly from his nostrils. He reached out and took his brother's arm, as if he had encountered something dirty, and quickened his pace. When Lily saw the actions of the two people, the corners of her mouth showed a little. With a sneer, she was still getting out of the car. The door was wide open. Bulatin Junhuan in the car was staring at her from the corner of his eyes. "What's wrong?" "It's okay." Lily shook her head, thinking of what she just heard Du Xiaoming say. She had recently killed 4 of the original 5 murderers, which should have caused Du Xiaorui to panic. From the meaning of Du Xiaoming's words just now, it seemed that Du Xiaorui, the ghost of the stupid father who thought it was the original owner, came back for revenge. As expected, when Du Xiaorui was touched, he would alert the snake and lure Du Xiaoming out. But fortunately, unlike the original owner, he failed in the end. Even if she appeared again at this time, the other 4 people would. His son was already dead, so it would be much easier to deal with Du Xiaorui. No matter how much Bulatin Junhuan liked Du Xiaoming, there were many ways to kill him, and Du Xiaorui couldn't escape no matter what. Thinking of Bulatin Junhuan's love for Du Xiaoming, Lily glanced at Bulatin Junhuan with a smile on her lips, but saw a cold look on his face. Apparently, he had passed by the car just now a woman he would fall in love with in the future. He didn't notice at all. Seeing that Bulatin Junhuan was about to speak, Lily didn't bother to pay attention to him, and directly reached out to close the car door. In the car, Bulatin Junhuan's face suddenly became even colder. Lily just took 2 steps, the phone rang. "I will pick you up at 3 in the afternoon. There is a party tonight." The plot of participating in activities with Bulatin Junhuan is Du Xiaoming's patent. Before meeting Du Xiaoming, Bulatin Junhuan had many women, but he never brought any female companions into his real circle of friends. At this moment, he didn't expect he would ask her to accompany him to participate. Lily was recently thinking about how to make Du Xiaorui die miserably so that she could complete this mission. When she heard Bulatin Junhuan's request, she said without thinking, "I don't want to go." Before he finished speaking, Bulatin Junhuan had already hung up the phone when he heard the word no. Lily's eyebrows and her heart skipped a beat. The elevator downstairs in the company lobby had come down. Du Xiaoming and her brother entered the elevator at this moment. When they saw Lily a few steps away, they pressed the floor button without thinking. This entire building, they are all properties under the name of Bujinhuan Company. Each floor is a different department. Even though there are a lot of elevators, because there are more people in the company, especially during the 3 peak usage periods in the morning, noon, and evening, the elevators are still in short supply, so I missed one. The elevator will wait for a long time, so if there are people under the building, the colleagues in the elevator will help to keep the elevator door open for a while, so as not to miss the elevator and wait for the next one. Lily arrived at the company early today. There were not many people in the company building at the moment. Except for a few beautiful receptionists at the front desk who had already gone to work, there were only a few people downstairs in the bustling company building in the past. She saw that the elevator was occupied by Du Xiaoming. When the two closed the door, Lily strode forward and pressed the sign to go upstairs. The elevator door that was about to close opened again. Du Xiaoming, the 2 siblings in the elevator, had already closed the door. He took off his coat and hung it on his arm. Obviously he didn't expect that the elevator with the closed door would reopen. The 2 people were talking, and they were discussing the death of Duan Xiaoran and others some time ago. At this moment, the elevator door opened. As soon as they opened it, the 2 of them subconsciously stopped talking. When they saw Lily, their faces became a little ugly. Du Xiaorui was obviously frightened at this time. His handsome face looked a little pale. When the elevator door suddenly opened, his body even shook heavily. When he saw Lily coming in, his face was livid and his lips were trembling. "Don't worry." Du Xiaoming endured the anger in his heart and reached out to squeeze Du Xiaorui's palm. Her tense face was reflected in the smooth mirror in the elevator. Lily just pretended not to see her expression. The elevator door was about to close, so she pressed the door sign again. The elevator door opened and closed for a while. After a few times, Du Xiaming finally couldn't help it. He turned around and stared at Lily with a stern look. "Can you stop playing? I have something urgent to do with my brother." From the conversation she heard between the two when they got off the bus and entered the elevator, Lily guessed that the two siblings had come to ask for leave from the company today in order to return to their original county seat to investigate some situations. Seeing them now with a hurried look on her face, Lily rolled her eyes. "Really? When there was a car accident last time, Du Xiaming knew that she was going to work, but he deliberately stopped her and even asked the traffic police to test her blood, which made her worried that the original owner's body was found to have been injected with drugs." Things were turning, they were in an emergency, but Lily didn't panic anymore. What's more, the two of them had clearly seen her but deliberately closed the elevator door. Lily was also blocking the elevator door from closing, and she pressed the elevator door again. When he opened the door, Du Xiaming felt that he couldn't bear it anymore. He reached out and grabbed her hand and pushed her away. "I told you, we still have something to do." Lily slapped the back of her hand without thinking. She was very powerful. Although Du Xiaming didn't like Lily, a vicious woman who hit someone and threatened to kill them, now he saw her getting out of the luxury car. When she came down, she always looked down on her, but she really never thought that Lily would hit her. She was stunned for a moment. The pale-faced Du Xiarui next to her suddenly pulled her sister to her side and clenched her fists. "How dare you touch me, elder sister? It's the peak time for elevator use in the morning. What's going to happen to others later? Miss, you are so kind, even if you see an old lady touching porcelain on the roadside, you will help her. Why are you so selfish now? You know that the company may colleagues need to use the elevator, but you only care about yourself." Lily rolled up her bag, then stared at Du Xiaming slowly and sneered. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 593. At this time, Du Xiarui looked like he was about to hit someone, but although he had not practiced martial arts for long at this time, it might be difficult to deal with a real master, and even a small amount of internal strength would not be able to withstand swords and guns, but he had to deal with Du Xiarui. But it doesn't matter. She was able to beat the young man in the army to death, but now she can make Du Xiarui walk around without food. At this time, Du Xiarui is anxious and scared. She wants to make Du Xiarui more afraid. A few days would not kill him now, but it would be okay to let him suffer for a while. The back of Du Xiaming's hand was sore from Lily's beating. Lily didn't restrain her strength just now. Now the back of Du Xiaming's hand was red, swollen, and hot. Her face was blue and white, and she couldn't open her mouth because of Lily's words. She knew in her heart that Lily should have recognized herself just like her. But she didn't say anything, but now she deliberately used such small actions to disgust people. Du Xiaming had a worse impression of Lily in her heart, but she couldn't open her mouth to refute. This made her expression a little gloomy, and she spoke with a cold expression on her face. He put a hand compress on the back of his beaten hand and said nothing. "Is there anyone outside at the moment? Are you deliberately looking for trouble? There are still about 10 minutes left before the rush hour. There are not many people outside at the moment. There are only company colleagues, but many company colleagues there was no intention of taking the elevator upstairs. Instead, a few people brought breakfast and sat on the sofa in the lobby to start eating." Du Xiarui was in a very bad mood. The recent mysterious deaths of Duan Xiaoran and several others left a mark in his heart. He was left with a very deep shadow. He didn't think much about the death of one or two of his former partners, but the remaining 4 of the 5 young men were all dead. He has been in trouble lately, and sometimes has nightmares when he sleeps. Yesterday he saw a doctor who said he was suffering from a nervous breakdown. Today Du Xiaming came to ask for leave with him. The two siblings were about to go back to their original county town to check information, but they didn't expect that as soon as they entered the company, they met Lily, and such an incident happened so early in the morning. Looking for trouble? You can't see there are so many people outside. Lily pressed the door button again, and the elevator door that was about to close opened again. Du Xiaorui finally couldn't bear it anymore this time. He cursed twice, clenched his fists and was about to rush over, but Lily pushed him away with a slap. Du Xiaorui took several steps back with a heavy body. After hitting the back, the elevator shook uncontrollably. Lily sneered, "I can't wait any longer. You can go to the safe passage." When Du Xiaorui wanted to say something else, Du Xiaorui had already endured his anger and pulled him. "Arui, go out and wait for the next elevator." Du Xiaorui was already a little irritable, and if he continued to make trouble later, it would only waste time. The mysterious murderer behind that took the lives of Duan Xiaoran and several others one after another, and it was related to his brother's life. Time is running out. Du Xiaming has already booked a car to go back to her hometown county today. She didn't know what happened at first. She was studying abroad when it happened. Her parents only said that something happened to her brother and finally suppressed the matter. Du Xiaming didn't know about this until Du Xiaorui was often awakened by nightmares recently, and he was losing weight day by day. Although I also hate that my brother was ignorant when he was young and cost a life. But this is his younger brother after all. There was no way she wouldn't help him. Besides, people couldn't be resurrected. Even the person who died when Du Xiaorui was killed couldn't be resurrected. The most she could do was try her best to compensate the victim's family. Du Xiaming had a hunch that a relative of the deceased must be behind this time. She was an atheist. No matter how miserable Duan Xiaoran and the others died, she still didn't believe in the theory of ghost revenge. However, Du Xiaorui was scared to death, so Lily's actions at this moment made others angry. In order to avoid wasting time, Du Xiaming gave Lily a cold look and pulled Du Xiaorui out of the elevator. As soon as the two siblings got out of the elevator door closed not long after. Du Xiaming originally thought that Lily would open the elevator door again, but unexpectedly the elevator door closed and the elevator began to rise. This clearly laid out the situation for the two of them, making both of them look livid with anger. Du Xiaorui even kicked the elevator door angrily, attracting surprised looks from everyone downstairs. This building has a total height of more than 50 floors. Lily's body is the secretary assistant next to the company boss. She works on the top floor, and the top administrative office is also on the top floor. If Du Xiaorui wants to ask for leave, he should do so on the top floor. The elevator goes upstairs. Lily then left. She turned on each floor, and then went out to turn on the elevators on each floor. By the time she reached the top floor, it was already more than 10 minutes later, and she had arrived early. It was working time, but because Beihee was now the person next to Bulletin Junhuan, no one in the company dared to stare at her to see if she was late. After she returned to the office, it was not until almost half an hour later that Du Xiaming and his brother were ashen. She came upstairs with a smile on her face. By the time she had applied for leave and completed all the formalities, it was already more than half an hour later. The car and plane she had booked to return to her hometown had already left. When Lily came out of the office with the information, happened to bump into the two siblings with ugly faces. Du Xiaorui almost rushed over at that time, but was held tightly by Du Xiaming. Looking at the two siblings, Lily sneered at them. When they saw that they were trembling with anger, they went to do their own things. Du Xiaorui took a month's leave this time. Beihee asked people from the detective agency to keep an eye on them until they knew that they had investigated the life of Tong's father, as well as the Tong family's old house and the demolition of the county town in the past 2 years. Tong Beihee was what she wanted was money, not real estate. She used the money to hire a detective so that she could study. The neighbors of the Tong family were also scattered to various places due to demolition. Many of them could not even find the remains. Things had gone too long. How could she possibly find out anything? If Tong Bei hadn't been keeping an eye on these 5 families with the demolition money, I'm afraid that even today, she might not be able to find the 5 murderers. But I don't know if Du Xiaming is really lucky or because she is really capable. She not only found the old neighbor of Tong's family, found out the identity of Tong's father, but also found out that Tong's father's only daughter was named Tong Bei, and we also found the mother in the original plot who had not been seen since she was sensible. A month later, Lily had just come out of the company. Buletin Junhuan had a party this afternoon and wanted to take her with him. Since he took the reluctant Lily to a private party in his circle a month ago, Buletin Junhuan wanted to take her with him. Junhuan seemed to like taking her out for fun. In the past, he never took her to parties. Whether it was a charity party, a business event, or some private dinners in the same circle, he would always take Lily with him. Lily sometimes she would refuse a few times, but if she refused too many times, Buletin Junhuan would take her forcefully. Lily refused the first 2 gatherings. According to Buletin Junhuan's character, it is impossible to refuse her a 3rd time. Opportunity, so before 3 o'clock this afternoon, Buletin Junhuan called her and asked her to leave the company. When I first got off the company building, there were a few people sitting in the lobby on the left. They were talking under the transparent floor-to-ceiling glass. When they heard the sound of the elevator going downstairs, several people turned their heads. When they saw Lily, a group of people stood up and stared at Lily with different expressions. "Wait a minute," Du Xiaming's voice rang. When the company employees who were sitting on the other side of the hall downstairs talking in a low voice heard this voice, they raised their heads and glanced here. Du Xiaming directly walking towards Lily. When she stood up, there was not only a middle-aged woman who looked a little uncomfortable, but also Du Xiarui, who had a gloomy face. At this moment, he was staring at Lily fiercely, and another pair of middle-aged women stood next to her. The man and woman who looked like a young couple sat on the sofa without making a sound, frowning and turning their faces vaguely familiar. Du Xiaming's long hair was not tied up like the previous 2 times. Instead, it was draped behind his shoulders. When Lily was called by her, he turned to look at her and walked out of the company without paying attention. Wait a minute, Du Xiaming didn't expect that he had already told her to wait. Not only did Lily not wait, but she walked faster and faster. There was a hint of displeasure in her tone. She hurriedly ran towards Lily. When she was about to leave the glass door of the revolving hall of the company building, he reached out and stopped her. "Miss Tong, I have something to ask you. I told you to wait a moment." She forgot about the beating she got when she reached out to hold Lily's hand last time, but Lily didn't forget it. Now when she caught her, Lily raised her hand and slapped it on the back of her hand without thinking. Pa! With a loud sound, Du Xiaming was beaten so hard that his hand hurt. He subconsciously retracted his hand. At this moment, the revolving glass door had turned to the outside. As soon as Lily came down the stairs, Du Xiaming seemed to remember that he had something to say to her. Normally, she stamped her feet and cursed twice, but the sound insulation effect of this rotating glass door was extremely good, separating the inside and outside of the door into 2 worlds. Lily couldn't hear what she said, and Du Xiaming could only wait. When the door turned to the outside again, he hurriedly chased out. At this moment, Lily had already walked to the car. As soon as she got into the car, Du Xiaming chased her out. As soon as the car started, she panicked and stretched out her hand to grab the car. A harsh squeaking sound sounded, and a look of pain appeared on Du Xiaming's face. Under the inertia of the car driving forward, her nails, which had been well trimmed, were pushed out of the car door because she held the car door hard. A few lines of paint were scraped off, and the nails were turned over. Blood immediately started dripping down the fingers. The fingers were connected to the heart. Du Xiaming was in severe pain. She gasped for several breaths and frowned tightly. Wrinkled up. To be continued. Carrot. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 594. There was someone in the car, so it was naturally impossible for the car to drive forward. The big man driving in front stopped the car with an unsightly expression. The intercom rang behind the car, and the bodyguard driving the car blamed himself. Mr. Bulletin, I'm sorry. Bulletin Junhuan frowned. Lily turned around and saw Du Xiaming outside the window. Her cheek muscles were twitching instinctively. It was obvious that she was in severe pain. Her palm had curled up. And now the blood was flowing down her palm and all over her wrist, and some of it had already flowed onto the bracelet between her wrists. She was trembling and couldn't control her actions at all. She just gasped. Come out, before the driver in the front seat could open the door. Du Xiaming endured the pain, stretched out his other uninjured hand, gritted his teeth and patted the roof of the car several times, until the roof of the car was touched. There was a bang-bang sound, and she endured the pain and put the injured hand to her chest. At this moment, she bit her lips tightly, tears already welling up in her eyes. The other hand was not injured yet. His hand was still holding the door tightly, and the big man in front got out of the car a little annoyed. No one in the imperial capital dared to stop Bulletin Junhuan's car without saying anything, and also dared to slap the roof of his car hard. The big man now at that time, he wanted to give Du Xiaming a beating. He stood up and shouted at Du Xiaming. Get away. When he saw the scratches on the car, his face couldn't help but become even more ugly. Before he could speak again, Du Xiaming patted the car door twice more. Tong Lily, come out. This time the big man didn't want to talk to her anymore. He cut off her arm without saying a word and didn't care whether her fingers were injured. With one clean movement, he suppressed her on the car. Du Xiaming struggled several times, but couldn't get away at all. Lily saw Du Xiaming's stubborn and pale face pressed against the glass, almost deformed by the pressure. It could be seen that the big man had no sympathy for her at all. When he had just restrained Du Xiaming in the car, Du Xiaming's face clearly showed pain. Now he saw her face. Lily glanced at Bulletin Junhuan with some schadenfreude. This was Bulletin Junhuan's future sweetheart, but now he was treated like this by his subordinates. When Lily was about to watch the show, Bulletin Junhuan's mouth twitched at the strange look in her eyes. Pinched her palm, and lowered the window. Get it to the police station and find out the identity. Yes, Mr. Bu. The big man saw Bulletin Junhuan speak now. He nodded quickly and did not dare to press Du Xiaming into the car anymore. Instead, he grabbed her two wrists and cut them behind her back like a chicken, and pushed her to the side for a few steps. Du Xiaming tried his best to. She struggled, gasping for air. He shouted into the car, Tong Bei, I'm looking for you. There is someone you really want to meet. While she was shouting, a group of people from downstairs of the company rushed out in a hurry. When they saw Du Xiaming being restrained, Du Xiarui rushed forward angrily, but he was even more useless than Du Xiaming and was kicked down by the big man. On the ground, I am now kneeling on the ground holding my belly, unable to get up. Two middle-aged men and women surrounded the big man. He kept shouting, why are you beating people? Is there any more law? Another middle-aged woman who appeared to be wearing a red down jacket, denim tight leggings, permed yellow curly hair, and looked a little embarrassed now cautiously approached the car. At this moment, Bulletin Junhuan lowered the window but did not raise it. She opened the window and glanced at Lily. His eyes wandered around the car first. When he saw that there were only Lily and Bulletin Junhuan in the back seat of the car, He felt a little excited as if he had found his target. Ziahe, I am Mom. Mom has missed you these years. My daughter, you look exactly like me when I was young. Lily was still watching Du Xiaming being caught with cold eyes at first. When she heard what the middle-aged woman said, her face darkened. Next to her, Bulatin Junhuan suddenly couldn't hold back and laughed. Come and see, they look exactly the same. Bulatin Junhuan's expression has always been cold on weekdays. Even when he occasionally smiles, the corners of his mouth are slightly raised. On rare occasions when he laughs like this, he seems to be restrained and controlled. He went too far, and now reached out to catch Lily into his arms, lifting her chin to turn her face towards him. When Lily heard his laughter, her face became even more ugly, and she pulled her into his arms. He clapped his hands away and said impatiently, "Don't make trouble. Ziahe, I am your mother. When we lived in the Tongjiawan area on Julong North Road, Hexian County, we even planted a poplar tree at home. At that time, do you remember that the locust tree was in bloom? How old were you? You were so ignorant that you asked for snacks, and your stupid father even picked flowers and coaxed you, saying they were sweet. At that time, I said it was unhygienic and I wasn't allowed to give it to you, do you remember?" Tongbei was still very young when the original owner's mother left, and most of her memories at that time were already a little blurry, but now Leng Hesha could listen to the woman talking about the scene when the child's father coaxed his daughter, and Lily couldn't help but feel a little sad for the original owner. When she got up, the middle-aged woman had a look of disdain on her face when she talked about the father of the original owner. It was obvious that she looked down on the child's father. She had put makeup on her face, but she could still see the traces of time. She was no longer young. Although Tongbei is many times prettier than her, it can still be seen that this middle-aged woman should have been good-looking when she was young. No wonder she felt unwilling at that time, but she didn't know that Tong's father was the original owner. What kind of status did she have in her heart? She just thought that she deliberately emphasized the name of her silly father, which would make Lily feel ashamed in front of Bulatin Junhuan. After saying this, she smiled flatteringly at Bulatin Junhuan. "You are successful now, and my mother doesn't ask for any blessings from you. If you recognize me, we will have more contact with each other in the future and take more care of your younger brothers and sisters who want to see you as my sister. If you don't recognize me, I will look at you. Just live well. Miss Tong, we have something to tell you. Please get out of the car quickly." Du Xiaming, who was restrained by the big man at this moment, was still shouting even though he was about to be pushed to the ground. The security guard at the door of the company saw there was movement here, and he hurriedly ran over. The big man gave a few instructions to the security guard, and pointed out the identity of the person sitting in the car. The security guard came over and greeted Bulatin Junhuan cautiously, and then took Du Xiaming over. Although Du Xiaming shouted loudly, the big man just called the car repair shop, reported a price to the security guard, and asked the security guard to take him to the police station. Finally, he got back into the car, and Lily raised the window. The middle-aged woman was still a little unwilling to arrest her, but the money Du Xiaming had to pay after catching the car just now was a lot of money for ordinary people, and because of Bulatin Junhuan's aura, she dared to stretch out her hand, although she was still shouting "I am your mother," but the people in the car ignored her at all and drove away. The woman just now should be the biological mother of the original owner. Although the impression of mother has faded in the original owner's mind, the Tong family yard at that time and the locust tree she mentioned did exist. But with such a mother, there is no doubt that it showed the cuteness of the original owner's father, and a sense of desolation inevitably emerged from this body. Lily tried her best to suppress it, and Bulatin Junhuan reached out to hug her to his chest. "Cry if you want. Get out," Lily pushed him, and Bulatin Junhuan's face turned livid for a moment, but in the end he endured it and hugged her silently. After that day, Du Xiaming was arrested and taken to the police station, and he lost a lot of money. The car was a purely imported car, with only 2 units in the world. The paint on the car body was scratched, and it couldn't be repaired in China. He had to send it back to the original factory. This is the most expensive part. She was taken to the police station because she stopped Buletin Junhuan's car, so the people at the police station didn't dare to let her go, even if the Du family was trying to solve this problem by stuffing money and looking for connections. It's a pity that Du Xiaming was imprisoned for 15 days before he was released. After she was released, she did not give up. She had a very bad life in the police station these days, so she went home to rest for half a day and took a shower. She was thinking about her brother's life safety now and was deeply afraid of the people behind her. Black Hand attacked his brother, so he didn't dare to rest and started looking for Lily again. Although Du Xiaming learned a lesson after blocking Jun Huan's car last time, this did not make her back down. She appeared downstairs at Lily Company again. Lily has been very annoyed recently. After she appeared in front of her, the child mother began to pester her. At first, the child mother herself pestered her. Later, the children born after the child mother married later also began to pester her. Even a few days ago, Tongbei was in her teens. Her aunt's family, whom she had not had contact with a year ago, also began to appear. Every day, the downstairs of the company was as lively as an opera. Lily started to ignore them, but she soon discovered that it was useless to ignore such people. Until yesterday, the security guards downstairs were ordered to not allow these people to enter the company entrance. After seeing that they could drive people away no matter what method they used, yesterday this group of people began to hide far away and waited outside the company parking lot. "Miss Tong, I have something to tell you." Du Xiaming appeared again after just 2 days of silence. Lily sneered, "I'm warning you, stay away. I just have something to say to you. I know that my brother was sorry for your father back then. He can't be resurrected after death. No matter how sorry I say, I still know how you feel in your heart." Du Xiaming has been. She has lost weight in the detention center, but her eyes have become more determined. "We had misunderstandings before, and I apologize to you. I know that you have developed such a cold personality because you have not had a father since you were a child. You are not necessarily an indifferent person in your heart. Now I suspect that there is someone who had a relationship with your father and wants to vent his anger on his behalf. This Black Hand behind the scenes has killed 4 people. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 595. Seeing the seriousness on Du Xiaming's face, Lily didn't want to talk nonsense to her. When she turned to leave, Du Xiaming quickly stopped her and said, "Don't you want to know who the murderer is?" Seeing that Bei didn't speak, Du Xiaming suddenly sneered, "Maybe you actually know in your heart that the murderer is you, right?" As soon as she finished speaking, an inevitable murderous intention surged up in Lily's heart. She moved her fingertips slightly, and Du Xiaming stared at Lily for a while. "I checked that car. I can't find out his identity. He must be your accomplice, right? I won't let my brother die. I will protect him. If you don't stop, you will fall into my hands. I will protect Xiao Ran, Xiaoan and others. Revenge, murder will pay for life, retaliation for retaliation is fair in this world." Lily didn't say anything. She just raised her hand and looked like she wanted to slap Du Xiaming. Du Xiaming was shocked. Lily had hit the back of her hand twice before. When she saw Lily's action, she put her hands behind her back, shrank her shoulders, and closed her eyes tightly, looking a little wary. Seeing her like this, Lily sneered and raised her hands in front of her eyes and looked at them. "I said it's over, get away." When Du Xiaming opened his eyes and saw this scene, his face turned very ugly. Her defensive and frightened posture just now was too much. Now when she saw that Lily didn't reach out to hit herself, Du Xiaming felt afraid of herself just now. Feeling a little embarrassed, she snorted coldly and didn't speak. She saw that Lily had turned around and left, and her high heels made a loud sound when they stepped on the smooth floor. It seemed like every blow hit Du Xiaming's heart. She hesitated for a long time, and then suddenly shouted at Lily's back, "I will find evidence and send you to prison. This person is so annoying." Lily originally only wanted Du Xiaorui's life, but now Du Xiaming made her feel a little uncomfortable. Du Xiaming did not appear in front of her in the next few days, but a bunch of relatives of the original owner appeared. It made Lily feel a little bored. These people probably thought that the original owner was now prosperous, so they all clung to her, following her every day as if they were stalking her. They opened their mouths to tell the story of their relationship with the original owner, especially Tong Beihi's mother, who burst into tears. It expresses that she had no choice but to leave. A few days ago, after Lily informed the mall security that they were not allowed to let the group of people into the downstairs of the company, the group of people stayed outside the highway, if Bulletin Junhuan's car was there. These people didn't dare to come out, but if Lily drove to work by herself, a group of people would surround the car and prevent her from leaving. Bulletin Junhuan seemed to be very busy in the past 2 days. Sometimes he would send a car to take her here in the morning, and come in person when he got off work in the afternoon. It took a lot less time to pick up Lily, so Lily didn't care. Recently, Du Xiaorui thought he had found all the children's father's relatives and all his contacts. He seemed to feel that he was safe, so he returned to the company to work again, and his face looked much better than before. Lily was ready to do this. She would attack him within a short period of time and deal with Du Xiaorui. Then she would be completely cut off from Bulletin Junhuan. It didn't matter to her whether he was cold or enthusiastic. When I drove out of the garage, I had just exited the parking lot. A group of relatives gathered around him like flies that had smelled the meat. The one anxiously patting her window glass happened to be Tong Beihi's mother's greedy face with a forced smile. Seeing such a scene, Lily stopped the car, and a proud smile appeared on her face. "Xiaohe, let's talk carefully. I didn't mean to leave you at the beginning. Your father was a fool at the time. You are also a woman. You should understand, Mom, which woman would be willing to live with a fool for the rest of her life? I am also a human being, and I also need a normal life, but now that Mom has found you, I will definitely take good care of you in the future." Lily sneered. Even if this woman said something extravagant, her heart still remained calm. This middle-aged woman's words might not even be able to coax the original owner, let alone coax her. No matter how nice the woman's words were, it was a pity that she was not the original owner. I can't feel her sincerity. A group of people gathered around. Some anxiously said they were her aunt, some said they were her siblings, and a man said he was the husband of a middle-aged woman and wanted to treat her as his biological daughter from now on. Lily took the phone away. "Come out and call the police." Someone maliciously blocked the car and robbed it. She reported her address. People outside the car only saw that she had just made a phone call, but did not know what she said until a group of policemen on motorcycles came over half an hour later. While the middle-aged women were somewhat covered, they were all surrounded by the police. "Who called the police?" the policeman asked, and Lily opened the car door and got out of the car. "I called the police. These people have been following me recently. I wonder if there is some criminal group behind them." Attempt. The middle-aged woman had a look of confusion on her face and was still trying her best to explain that this was her daughter. However, the police hesitated and decided to take the group back to the police station first. After all, this place was owned by Bulletin Junhuan. Property, if a bunch of people stay here for a long time, it will have a bad impact. When it was her turn to take Lily away, Lily made a call to the people around Bulletin Junhuan. After a while, the policeman headed by Kung Fu answered the phone. With a wave of his hand, he took away all the young girls and others who were still trying their best to explain their identities. Lily got into the car again, and decided in her heart that before she and Buletin Junhuan were cut off, she would use his reputation to punish this group of people. Just because the group of people had surrounded her car for more than half an hour, and this paragraph there is superficial evidence that these people are always following her. It is very easy to make this group of people bear the name of criminals. As long as there is more pressure behind them, these people may have to spend 2 or 3 years in prison. Before she could start the car again, the phone rang. This time it was Buletin Junhuan calling. "Were you in trouble just now?" he first asked about the situation. Lily didn't want to talk to him and didn't say anything. He quickly continued, "Wait for me where I am. I'll be there soon." After saying this, he hung up the phone again. Lily didn't even think about listening to him. As soon as the phone was put down, a RV stopped behind. As expected, he came very quickly. At this moment, a big man came to pick him up. Her car keys helped her drive the car back, and she sat in Buletin Junhuan's car. Buletin Junhuan didn't say where he was going, and Lily didn't ask. When the car stopped at a large entertainment venue, Lily frowned. This is the most high-end entertainment club in Kyoto. Almost all the best dignitaries from China in Kyoto love to come here. There are only ways to play here that you can't think of, and there is nothing you can't find. It is the early investment in Buletin Junhuan's name. The most important thing is that under this club, the largest underground jade trading market in Kyoto is hidden. In the plot, Tongbai was never brought by Buletin Junhuan, but she did inquire about this place and had been there in person. It was precisely because of this place that she discovered that Du Xiaming and Buletin Junhuan were together. At that time, Buletin Junhuan had almost cut off contact with Tongbei and asked her to use it again. Tongbei wanted to intercede with him because he couldn't use his name, so after asking about this place, she saw Buletin Junhuan accompanying Du Xiaming, and also saw with her own eyes Du Xiaming's weird luck. The car drove directly into the parking lot, and the two of them took the direct elevator downstairs. The underground jade market was now resplendent, and cheers could be heard from everywhere. Unexpected people thought that gambling on stones could kill one person in 1 minute. You may become rich overnight, but you may also lose everything in an instant. But Lily knows in her heart that it is possible for people who play stone gambling to lose everything. It is almost impossible to become rich overnight in this place. If only stones worth hundreds of thousands are just fine, and you may be able to get out of this place. If you really get a stone worth tens of millions or nearly billions, without any background, don't even think about getting out. In the plot, Du Xiaming frequently sells nearly 100 million yuan of imperial green jade raw stones, and in the blink of an eye, she becomes a rich woman with a net worth of billions. If it were not for Buletin Junhuan to protect her, she might have died countless times. There was a lot of noise all around. When Buletin Junhuan appeared, a large number of security personnel from the stone gambling den immediately gathered around him. Many people came up to say hello to him, but he ignored him and just held Lily's hand. "Ask her, do you want to play?" Lily wanted to shake her hand away by arranging her hair, but he held on tightly. In the end, he simply clasped his fingers with hers and pulled her to stand in front of a stone betting ground, where a large number of rough stones were piled. The tools for cutting stones on the side were very complete. Many people were sitting around at the moment. The atmosphere was lively. When Buletin Junhuan passed by, someone moved out chairs. After looking at it for a while, Lily didn't have much interest in gambling on stones. The wealth that could attract other people's attention was just passing cloud to her. She couldn't take it with her or spend it after leaving the mission, so she looked away after looking at it for a while. After she opened her eyes, Buletin Junhuan had been paying attention to her secretly. When he saw her like this, his eyes immediately darkened. During the time they had been together, Buletin Junhuan became more and more elusive to Lily. She seemed not to notice the great strength and wealth he displayed in front of her. At this moment, even everyone was obsessed with gambling. She didn't seem to care, as if nothing could hold her gaze. Bulatin Junhuan's eyes flashed with a bit of haze. Before he could speak, a familiar female voice rang in their ears. Mr. Bulatin. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 596. When she heard this voice, Lily perked up. She turned around and saw Du Xiaming, wearing a loose sweater and a thick coat in his hand, standing quietly with a bag on his back. There. Her long, smooth hair is spread behind her, and her jeans make her round and straight legs look slender and long. In this underground jadeite trading market where the men are well dressed and the women are dressed up with jewels, she is as pure as it was like a stream of water, which attracted the attention of many people. When she saw Du Xiaming, Lily burst into laughter. Du Xiaming had only seen a woman sitting next to Bulatin Junhuan before. Unexpectedly, when he turned around, it was Lily. She was obviously surprised at first, and then she bit her lip, pulled the backpack on her back, and walked closer to Bulatin Junhuan. She resisted the gazes of the people around her and said sternly to Bulatin Junhuan, Mr. Bulatin, I have something to say. I want to tell you, can I take a step to talk? Du Xiaming actually found out Bulatin Junhuan's identity, and might have met him secretly. Lily turned to look at Bulatin Junhuan, and saw that he looked calm now, staring at Du Xiaming without making a sound. I have something to tell you, Mr. Bu. I won't disturb you too much. Du Xiaming pursed her lips tightly, with a serious look on her face. She turned her head and glanced at the stone she was betting on. She turned her attention to Bulatin Junhuan again. Seeing that Bulatin Junhuan ignored her, she became obviously anxious. What do you want to do to talk to me? Do you want to bet on these stones? After saying this, she hurriedly asked. She ran over from the front and pushed the crowd away. People around saw that she was talking to Bulatin Junhuan just now and thought she was acquainted with Bulatin Junhuan. Even though he was a little dissatisfied at this moment, he still got out of the way. After Du Xiaming entered, he looked at the hill like rough stone. Take a deep breath. After about a moment, a strange look of confusion appeared on her face, as if she glanced around subconsciously, as if she was looking for something. Lily's eyes were fixed on her, and she saw her choosing a few circles around the stone, and suddenly pointed at an inconspicuous stone. I want this piece. Mr. Bulatin, will you take time out once you have enough fun? After she selected the stone-cutting master glanced at the host of the stone gambling pit, who then stared at Bulatin Junhuan and nodded hesitantly. Lily and Bulatin Junhuan have been dealing with each other for a while. She also knew a little bit about his character. From his reaction at this moment, Lily guessed that Du Xiaming must have been looking for Bulatin Junhuan in private, and Bulatin Junhuan should not be completely disgusted with her, otherwise based on his personality, Du Xiaming was now shouting in the stone field that he wanted to open the stone, and asked to talk to him. He should have asked someone to push Du Xiaming away directly, instead of letting her talk for a long time and pointing at the stone to open it. Thinking of this, a faint smile appeared at the corner of Lily's mouth. When she saw the master who was preparing to open the stone pick up the stone, she thought of Du Xiaming's weird and incredible ability. Every time the stone he clicked would open, the best jade will appear inside, Lily suddenly said. Wait. Everyone was staring at Du Xiaming at this moment. As soon as Lily opened her mouth, naturally a group of people's eyes fell on Lily. Bulatin Junhuan also showed interest in his eyes. When Du Xiaming saw that the speaker was Lily, she frowned unconsciously and took a deep breath. Miss Tong, what have you done? You know in your heart that I don't want to talk to you now. One day you will be punished by law. If Bulatin Junhuan can be found, Du Xiaming can naturally find out what he has done in the name of Bulatin Junhuan. These days, Du Xiaming has harbored suspicions about the death of Duan Xiaoran and others. She had doubts, and she did not completely doubt Lily at first. After all, Lily was just a weak woman, and the dead people had different expressions. She originally thought that Lily was not that capable of killing all these people. But during the half-month he was detained by the police station, Du Xiaming thought of Lily's character. The old man with a stern face could easily threaten people by running her over. Du Xiaming felt that Lily's nature was vicious and twisted. The relatives and old friends who suspected that the child's father would avenge him turned into doubting Tong Bei. After all, the child's father didn't have many friends at the beginning. A fool died. Except for his biological daughter, no one would really avenge him, let alone kill. After coming out of the police station, Du Xiaming defrauded Lily again. At that time, Lily told her to get out. Then Du Xiaming found Tong Bei's mother and a group of relatives, and asked these people to stare at Lily every day. During this time, nothing happened to her brother. Du Xiaming's suspicions deepened in her mind. She followed her suspicions and investigated. Although there was no evidence that Lily actually killed someone, she had a motive for killing people. Du Xiaming insisted on this. Then Buletin Junhuan was found. She didn't know Buletin Junhuan's identity at the beginning. She wrote down Buletin Junhuan's license plate number, but she couldn't find it online. Instead, she found out Buletin Junhuan's identity through her brother Du Xiarui. And then he remembered from Buletin that a certain Chinese president had also been named Buletin, and then he even guessed that Chu Junhuan's identity should be related to this president. If Buletin Junhuan is really so powerful and Lily is with him, Du Xiaming feels that she can almost guess how Lily kills people. She feels that the reason why she cannot find any clues about how these people died is because of these people's deaths were all caused by Buletin Junhuan hiring professionals for the sake of the women around him. If Buletin Junhuan hadn't intervened, Lily would have definitely left traces if she really did it, and it was impossible for her to not find it at all. And if Buletin Junhuan really takes action for Lily, then according to his status, it will definitely be more than enough to hire professionals to kill a few people. In addition, Du Xiaming is not really stupid. She understands that there are some powerful people in this world. It's very useful. If Buletin Junhuan really wanted to cover up, let alone that she couldn't find the evidence. Even if she could find the evidence, I'm afraid no one would dare to convict Lily at all in the end. After thinking about this, Du Xiaming hinted that Tong Bei's mother, aunt, and others were entangled in her. She felt that Buletin Junhuan and Lily were separated, and she began to look for Buletin Junhuan. She only hoped that Buletin Junhuan would be separated. Junhuan can be persuaded by her one day and help testify against Lily as the murderer, so that he can send her to prison to avenge Duan Xiaoran and others who died in the past, and at the same time help his brother to solve the danger. Du Xiaming was indeed very smart. She guessed that Lily was the real culprit, so she submitted an application to suspend her studies to the school during this period and focused on tracking Buletin Junhuan. Over a period of time, she met Buletin Junhuan several times. I have spoken to him several times, but I have never found a chance to persuade him to help me testify against Lily. It sounds like I want to talk to you, Miss Du. I just want to ask you, if you said you wanted to buy this stone, buy this stone. Have you paid for it? After hearing Du Xiaming's pointed words, He leaned back on the chair, placed his right elbow on the armrest of the chair, and raised his chin with the palm of his hand. You didn't take out the money to buy the stone. Why did you open it when you said you wanted to? Now I bought this stone. When she spoke, there was a contemptuous smile on her eyebrows and the corners of her mouth. Du Xiaming was so angry that she was trembling all over. She had a hunch that there seemed to be some secret in this stone. When she approached these stones just now, some of them contained, there was a crisp echoing sound, and there were faint dots of different colors on the stone. Most of them were gray, and some were gray with green in them. Only the stone had the loudest echo, and there was a green tint on the surface of the stone. When she clicked on it, Du Xiaming instinctively felt that she should choose the stone. She felt that looking at this stone was very friendly, so she clicked on this stone. She didn't expect that Lily would come to snatch it from her. Although Du Xiaming initially said she wanted to play stone gambling, she didn't actually want to make money by gambling on stones. She just wanted to attract Buletin Junhuan's attention and hoped that Buletin Junhuan would give her a chance to speak and let her he could be persuaded, but now that Lily wanted to grab a stone from her, Du Xiaming would not be happy. Originally, she had a bad impression of Lily in the only few encounters she had with Lily, and she later suspected Lily. He was a murderer. His brother's life was threatened by Lily at any time, and now Lily was robbing him of stones. Du Xiaming's face turned blue, his body began to tremble slightly, and he stared at Lily speechless. "What are you looking at? There is a first come, first served basis for buying stones here. I bought it first." Seeing Du Xiaming's angry look, Lily smiled even more proudly. She didn't ask the price of the stone here, but she knew it should be very expensive. She didn't have much money on hand. She turned her head and glanced at Buletin Junhuan. "Pay the money for me." This was the first time she asked Buletin Junhuan for something. Buletin Junhuan nodded, and the stone Du Xiaming selected fell into Lily's hands. Du Xiaming felt so aggrieved that she wanted to vomit blood. This was obviously the thing she had chosen, but now Lily snatched it away. But it was true that it was first come, first served. She was so anxious that she didn't pay. "Look." Buletin Junhuan asked someone to swipe Lily's card. Du Xiaming was disdainful of a woman who relied on a man like this, and gritted her teeth with hatred. She planned to choose another stone and pay the money first, lest Lily grab it later. His belongings, the stone, was taken away. The master who opened the stone slashed it, and everyone gasped. "Wow! Seeing green!" Someone in the crowd exclaimed, and his voice was trembling with excitement. Du Xiaming didn't understand what it means to be green, so he instinctively turned his head to look, and saw that the hands of the stone-cutting master were already trembling a little. People around were talking a lot, saying that Lily had become so prosperous all of a sudden. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 597. After the stone is cut, Lily can choose to continue to open it or sell the stone. If it continues to open and sees more green, if the color does not decrease and the jade quality is still high, then the value of the stone will double. Otherwise, if the color of the waterhead that has been opened has been reduced, and the stone may not be valuable. Lily thought of Du Xiaming's miraculous ability, and smiled and motioned for someone to open the door again. Even though the people next to her started to persuade her, she insisted on opening the door. Du Xiaming felt all kinds of things in her heart at this moment. She hoped that Lily would produce a piece of waste, but somehow, she also had a strange feeling in her heart. She felt that this stone was not waste at all, but it might have the color inside. Better and more valuable. Sure enough, as the stone continued to open, a large area of green appeared, and the people around it almost didn't dare to say anything. The price of jade also doubled again and again. Someone said, "The best imperial green." No matter how calm Du Xiaming was this time, he couldn't help but tremble all over, especially when someone next to him was already hurriedly bidding. Listening to the price, Du Xiaming felt her legs tremble. These numbers seemed to her to be astronomical. I'm afraid it can only be easily said on TV, but now it really appeared in front of her. Even though she didn't value money, the reason why she chose this jade in the first place was to attract Buletin Junhuan's attention. But the jade she had chosen with her own hands, the money should have belonged to her, but now it was snatched away by Lily in front of her. No matter how calm Du Xiaming was, he couldn't help but vomit blood at this moment. She glared at Lily on the seat hatefully, feeling all sorts of things in her heart at this moment, when Lily saw Du Xiaoming's red face. The smile on his face became even brighter. At this moment, everyone in the stone gambling den was staring at Du Xiaoming. Some of these eyes were sympathetic and some were sighing. Every glance fell on Du Xiaoming. It was as if a knife was cutting her flesh. Put this stone away. Amid the sighs and competing bids from everyone, Bulatin Junhuan signaled for people to put the stone away. This is his territory, even if everyone is very greedy for this stone. But no one dared to compete with him. Almost half of the stone had been opened. Even if there was no green again among the remaining stones, it could be said to be priceless. If the remaining stones turned green again, no one can imagine the value. I'm afraid whoever gets it will buy it home and collect it. Seeing Du Xiaoming's cheek muscles twitching with anger, Lily smiled even brighter. She took out a wallet from the leather bag she carried with her, took out a few 100 yuan bills, and handed them to Du Xiaoming. I had a great time today, Miss Du. Thank you for choosing such a good piece of jade for me. This is a tip for you. Thank you. Lily herself made hundreds of millions. But she gave herself a reward of several 100 yuan, and the look on her face when she talked about the reward was so dazzling in Du Xiaoming's eyes. She felt that the blood vessels in her mind began to beat loudly, and Du Xiaoming was so angry that his hands were straight. Shivering, her whole body was cold and her heart felt a little stinging. The money was dangling in front of her. The scene was so unsightly that she wished she could grab the money and tear it all to pieces. Du Xiaoming felt that she had never hated a person so much in her life, and Lily really made her gnash her teeth with hatred. She endured the trembling all over. The words seemed to be squeezed out from between the teeth. Who cares about your stinky money? If Lily hadn't bullied others, the jade should have been hers. Even if she didn't have this greed at the beginning, such a large sum of money was almost belonged to myself. This feeling of a cooked duck flying away still made tears well up in Du Xiaoming's eyes. Since you don't want it, I'll keep it myself. After Lily finished speaking, she took the money back into her bag, looking like she didn't want to give it to Du Xiaoming. This was obviously teasing her, which made Du Xiaoming's eyes feel somewhat hot. The overt and covert fight between the two women did not attract everyone's attention, because the news of the best imperial green had just been released, and it had already spread in the stone gambling field. Many people rushed here, and an ordinary the woman pointed her finger and unexpectedly selected such a piece of top-grade imperial green jade material. Everyone was stimulated by this and all their eyes fell on Du Xiaoming. No matter which way she turned her eyes, there were people vying to take it. After buying the piece of jade, everyone in the stone casino started to get busy. At first, Du Xiaoming wanted to choose a new piece of jade to regain the dignity that Lily had just snatched away, but as time went on, after she discovered the behavior of everyone trying to snatch the jade she was interested in, her face suddenly turned cold. So many things happened today, and now she had to be robbed of a piece of jade when she chose it. She was very unhappy. After a few pieces of jade were robbed that were all green, the price of raw materials in the jade farm began to rise. But everyone swiped cards and almost no one paid cash, so Du Xiaoming didn't know this. Her character was inherently stubborn, otherwise it wouldn't have been like this in the plot. After Junhuan looked at her differently, she didn't get carried away, but took advantage of her unique temperament. He did not fawn over Bulatin Junhuan and won his love. When Du Xiaoming discovered that these people were snatching the jade she was interested in, she began to feel unhappy. She was already very angry because the rough stone was robbed at a sky-high price. Now she saw that these people seemed to be deliberately following her. It seemed like she was doing the right thing. She didn't buy any of the stones she was interested in. It was as if she was working for someone else. She had a feeling that she was being used by others, so she started pointing randomly. She found that she heard something echoing. She deliberately did not choose rough stones or stones with green surfaces. Instead, she chose stones that had no sound at all and had gray spots on the surface. Having just had several experiences choosing stones, Du Xiaming could vaguely feel that she might have a gifted magical power that could communicate with jade. Now that she chose, as expected, no one who bought jade had ever bought green jade again. Several people lost money, and those who had followed the trend calmed down. When everyone thought that Du Xiaming had run out of luck, Lily's eyes had always been on Du Xiaming. She knew Du Xiaming's character, and since she decided to do it today to attract Bulletin Junhuan's attention and get a chance to chat with him privately, she would definitely not give up the stone bet easily. What's more, she still wants to get back the place that Lily just took away. She would definitely choose another stone. Lily approached Bulletin Junhuan and asked that the price of these stones be increased several times. Bulletin Junhuan could see that there was some tension between her and Du Xiaming at this moment, and in his heart he only thought that Lily was because Du Xiaming called him to talk to her alone. The corner of Bulletin Junhuan's lips curled up. He easily made the decision on such a small matter in his territory. When Du Xiaming chose a stone again, many people around her who followed the trend lost money because of her random pointing movements. At this moment, no one dared to follow her, and no one dared to grab the stone she chose. Du Xiaming breathed a sigh of relief. When she saw the rough stone, she felt like it for no reason. The echo was not much lighter than the stone she had chosen the first time. What was more important was that there were dots of 3 colors on the surface, in addition to green. It also brought purple and yellow. Du Xiaming didn't know much about jade, but when she thought about the feeling of choosing the first stone, she still couldn't help but choose the stone. She had a hunch that this stone would give her surprise. Where to pay? The first time I chose the stone, Lily overcame me. The next time I chose the stone, I was interrupted by others one after another. Du Xiaming has learned the lesson now. When she first chooses jade, she says she wants to pay for it. She plans to settle the money first, and then she doesn't believe that Lily can snatch it from her. "Miss, do you want to swipe your card or pay in cash?" the staff at the Stone Gambling Center asked respectfully. Du Xiaming didn't have much cash on her, only a bank card, which contained the money she had saved from the living expenses given by her parents over the years. She had saved more than 10,000 yuan, but she had lost more than 100,000 yuan because she had stolen Bulletin Junhuan's car. In addition to giving her 100,000, her parents. She also added some money herself, so there was only about 10,000 yuan in the card. These stones were worth 1,000 yuan at most. Du Xiaming didn't believe that these stones could be sold at such high prices, so she nodded confidently, "I want to swipe my card." Lily sat on the chair and started to watch the show. These stones originally cost only 5,000 yuan each, but because the stone Du Xiaming selected was of imperial green color. Therefore, many people started to fight together. The price of stone increased 1 liter and 1 stone. It was already close to 20,000 yuan per stone. In addition, Lily just wanted to trick Du Xiaming, so people asked people to sell the stone. The price increased to more than 50,000 yuan. Du Xiaming handed the card to the staff, who quickly returned her card. "I'm sorry, miss, the balance is insufficient." "What?" Du Xiaming couldn't believe her ears. She stretched out her hand to straighten her hair. "There is obviously more than 10,000 in the card, how come the balance is insufficient? The stones here cost 50,000 yuan each. The stone the lady chose is a high-end stone and is more expensive than ordinary stones," the staff member explained calmly. Before Du Xiaming could react, Lily became impatient. Started shouting. "Do you still want to buy it? If not, I want to buy it." As she said this, she urged Bulletin Junhuan to swipe her card for her. Du Xiaming now wanted to stab Lily to death. The first stone had just been thrown. At that time, she was overtaken by Lily. Now that she had finally chosen the stone, She was about to be snatched away by Lily. She was so depressed that she could not speak. However, she had no money at this time, even if she did not want to use it. He gave up the stone, but in the end he was still bleeding in his heart, seeing that the stone was bought by Lily again. This time when the stone was opened, something good came out again. Not only did it turn out green, but it also turned out yellow and purple. It was extremely lucky that the jadeite itself had one color, and now it also turned out 3 colors in a row. It seems that the quality of the waterhead is not bad, and there are no cracks or cotton in the opened area. This kind of 3-color jade is called fulushao by the industry, and the price is not much worse than the green jade. When he heard the gasps from the people around him, Du Xiaming felt as if he had been soaked in ice water. Miss Du is really lucky tonight. Just now Miss Du chose so many but didn't come out, but now she picked a good one. Lily looked at Du Xiaming's dark face and said. As soon as these words were spoken, there was a pause. Many people who had lost money looked at Du Xiaming a little fiercely. No matter how calm Du Xiaming was at the moment, she couldn't help but go a little crazy, especially because the price of the 3-color jadeite once again stimulated her. She looked very ugly and started to look around in the stone gambling den again. She didn't have enough money, so she simply borrowed 100,000 yuan from a stone gambling den and bought 2 stones. However, she had already chosen the real good jade by herself. Although the color of these 2 pieces of jade was visible when they were opened, the watercolor and texture were just average. In the end, I just got my money back. When Bulletin Junhuan took Lily and was about to leave, Du Xiaming hurriedly returned the 100,000 yuan from the underground stone quarry and was about to chase after him. But she was caught by someone from the stone quarry. She borrowed 100,000 yuan, and the principal was repaid, but the interest was still short. Du Xiaming wiped out all the more than 10,000 yuan she had brought with her before she was let go. She didn't make a penny tonight, and saw a huge amount of wealth almost appear in front of her, but ended up with nothing. Instead, she put in the more than 10,000 yuan she had saved so much. Du Xiaming wanted to die. Bulletin Junhuan's car had not left when she chased him out. Du Xiaming endured the reluctance in his heart and hurriedly walked towards the car. The car chased me, Mr. Bulletin, I have something to tell you. Can you give me 5 minutes? I am very sincere. I am indeed sincere. Thanks to Miss Du's sincerity tonight, I made a lot of money in the car. Before Bulletin Junhuan could speak, Lily continued. Du Xiaming was so angry that she wanted to cry, and there were veins on her forehead. He jumped, trembling and not looking at Lily's face, fearing that he would be unable to bear it later and forget his original purpose today. Mr. Bulletin, there was a cry in Du Xiaming's voice, and Bulletin Junhuan frowned. Get away. That moment, Du Xiaming's expression was a little dazed. It only takes 5 minutes. Mr. Bulletin, it only takes 5 minutes. Didn't I agree that as long as I play stone gambling? Do you want to talk to me? Du Xiaming's persistence and simplicity in the plot may make Yu Junhuan moved. But at this moment, it was obvious that Bulletin Junhuan was not very interested in her now that he had a better goal. Her entanglement turned into a constant stalking, and Bulletin Junhuan became a little tired of it. It had always been her own statement that she had given her a chance to talk after pointing out the stone. Bulletin Junhuan ignored her. After the car started, Du Xiaming was still chasing the car. Lily turned around and took a look. Du Xiaming was unwilling to give in. His appearance was thrown further and further away, and an idea suddenly came to his mind. In order to get Bulletin Junhuan's attention, the original Tongbei he wanted to use his power to avenge herself. Finally, she took the initiative to catch up with Bulletin Junhuan and was treated as a plaything by him. She was even voluntarily injected with drugs by him. In the plot, Du Xiaming also wanted to beg Bulletin Junhuan later, and she also stalked him, but how could she avoid being injected with drugs and get Bulletin Junhuan's full love? Both women had the same starting point. In order to attract, the outcome of this man's attention was completely different. Lily had also suffered from medicine this time. She hoped that Du Xiaming would be fair. Since they were all asking for help, they should act like they were asking for help. Holding the medicine that had been extracted from her body, Lily endured it for 2 days. She sent people to keep an eye on Du Xiaming. When she knew that she was frantically trying to meet Buletin Junhuan, Lily remembered that Tong Bei had asked how to meet Buletin Junhuan. The process of contacting Buletin Junhuan was also revealed to Du Xiaming by someone. Du Xiaming was already fighting for her brother. She thought she had a chance. She was willing to sacrifice herself for her brother. Although she felt a little disgusted when she thought that she and Tong Bei would be with a man together, for the safety of her brother as well as being able to send Lily to prison, Du Xiaming felt that everything was worth it. She convinced herself that she could just treat it as a dog bite. After gathering up her courage, she once again started looking for Chiu Junhuan. Unfortunately, she thought that she and Buletin it was already a grievance for Junhuan to be together, but now Buletin Junhuan looked down on her. Lily took advantage of the opportunity of being with Buletin Junhuan to easily coax Du Xiaming into taking the bait, making her think that she having found a way out. Lily found someone to inject the medicine she had extracted from her body into Du Xiaming's body. These drugs were originally relatively pure. After several injections, Du Xiaming became addicted. It was very stimulating at first, but once the drug stopped, the feeling became unbearable. She got her wish and saw Buletin Junhuan's face, but Buletin Junhuan doesn't like her like this. What attracts him in Du Xiaming's plot is her unique and stubborn character. Now that she comes to her, it's like she has reduced herself to the dust. How can she still be cherished and respected? Buletin Junhuan wasn't even interested in her body, but he was unexpectedly interested in her ability to show off Xiang Jade. Du Xiaming originally wanted to ask him to help bring Lily to justice and send her to prison. But now that things have not been done, he is not only addicted to drugs, but Buletin Junhuan has begun to ask her to help him with things. Du Xiaming didn't want to agree, but when the medicine came on, she couldn't control herself at all. She began to feel the feeling of the original owner who was addicted to the medicine and had given everything but achieved nothing in the end. She felt the despair, helplessness, and unwillingness. In the plot, the woman Buletin Junhuan cared about turned into a tool to make money for him. At this time, Du Xiaming's ability was not a blessing but a curse. She thought about resisting at first, but when the drug took effect, her integrity and self-esteem were all thrown aside. She was a little unwilling at first, but later she only remembered the medicine. On the other hand, Du Xiarui also relaxed his vigilance. Nothing happened for a long time, which made him think that the crisis had long passed. Until one day he woke up after being knocked unconscious and found that he was tied under a long-distance bus. He wanted to scream, but something was stuffed in his mouth and he couldn't scream. As the car started, Du Xiaorui's short time seemed to have gone through a long life. He remembered what happened when he was a child, and even the scene when he beat the boy's father to death also appeared in his mind. He thought he had forgotten it long ago, but when he thought about it now, he realized that he just didn't dare to think about it subconsciously. He was a well-known fool in the county. Everyone made fun of him. He was content with beating him and giving him some money. He used the money to buy sweets to coax his daughter. Everyone looked down on him at that time, but why? Is he so unlucky? Du Xiarui made mistakes when he was young and ignorant, but he later repented. Why didn't God give him a chance to correct himself? He knew that this was the fool's daughter taking revenge on him. His sister had told him. Unfortunately, even if Du Xiarui knew who the real murderer was, he couldn't shout it out. If he had known that an act of bullying in his youth would lead to such consequences, he would not have dared, and he regretted it. The car started to move, and Du Xiarui shed tears, waiting helplessly for death to come. The process was not pleasant. Duan Xiaoran and others probably felt similar to him at the beginning. I wonder if that fool felt the same way before he died. When Lily saw the news on the internet that a car dragged a headless male body on the highway and was stopped by the traffic police, she checked off the last name on the revenge card. As early as when she was preparing to take revenge on Du Xiaorui, Lily had already submitted her resignation to the company. At that time, Bulatin Junhuan only thought that she wanted to be with him wholeheartedly and didn't take it seriously, until Lily suddenly disappeared. In the past few years, he had played too much and never cared about women. But when he cared about someone and they didn't care about him, he realized that the feeling of being abandoned was not good. In the plot, Tong Beihe devoted her short life to revenge and never thought about herself. Beihe traveled around the country for her. She returned to the capital 2 years later and heard that the Bulatin family member had lost a true love. She was intoxicated at the beginning, and after she started not being close to women in the past 2 years, she started to laugh sarcastically. CEOs in the plot always like to play this trick, but unfortunately she is not the heroine, and she doesn't want to be that. After suddenly appearing to save the male protagonist, the two were happily together. The Virgin, wearing a halo, had nothing to do with Bulatin Junhuan's life or death. After returning to Kyoto, Lily saw Xiao Bei and saw him holding a girl. He was not always melancholy and smiling like before. He had his own life. He was not always locked up like in the plot. His brows looked unhappy. It's not that Lily doesn't sigh for the original owner, but I believe that the original owner likes to see this ending. Rather than hurting Xiao Bei, I'm afraid the original owner hopes that he can have a new day of his own. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 598. This time, Tong Beihe's tactics in the plot seemed vicious to Du Xiaming and others, and she ended up with a bad end, but Lily felt some sympathy for her. The original owner received too little care in her early years, so that her stupid father was in trouble with her. The status in her mind is particularly different. Those 5 ignorant people in her youth destroyed not only her only family relationship, but also the rare sunshine in her life. Although Tong Beihe later became more vicious, it was really because of that time. As a child, she had no one to teach her what to do. She just grew up based on instinct, so her personality is quite extreme. Lily sighed when she thought of Xiao Bei, the only person who was good to her, holding the hand of someone other than her child father, and then of the original owner who had disappeared long ago. Because of Xiao Bei's last happiness in this mission, the original owner seemed particularly pitiful. Although he had done a lot of tasks, Lily still sighed for the original owner this time. Are you unhappy? Li Yangzi touched her hair, with a bit of forbearance in his tone. Although his expression did not change at this moment, Lily could feel that he was the one who was unhappy. She shook her head. It's not that I'm unhappy, I just feel, Tong Beihe is a little pity. It's just that there are so many pity people in the world, and everyone's life can't be without regrets, not to mention that his mission itself is to fulfill the wishes of these women whose lives are not satisfactory and end up miserable. So Lily returns to the starry sky. When I was in middle school, I had actually adjusted my mentality back. This time you fulfilled her wish, and she is very satisfied. Tong Beihe was very happy that Lily had avenged 5 enemies for her this time, and she was very happy to speak out for the child's father in the way she wanted. The law did not give the child's father the right to do so. Lily used her own method to get justice for her. In addition, in the plot, Tong Beihe owed Xiao Bei her life. This time Xiao Bei had a new life of his own, which made Tong Beihe feel happy for him. Her disappearance alone brought an ending that everyone was satisfied with. Tong Beihe felt it was worth it. She gave you a blessing, where do you want to add it? Lily saw Li Yangzi's calm expression and pursed his lips slightly. Showing some sharp and blunt lines, she hesitated. I want to use force. As soon as she finished speaking, the attribute data appeared. Gender, female, variable. Name, Lily. Age, 21. Intelligence, 84, out of 100. Appearance, 91, out of 100. Physical strength, 77, 100 full points. Force, 60, 100 full points. Spirit, 82, out of 100. Reputation, 47, out of 100 points. Skills, 9 Yang Manual, 9 Yin Manual, Heaven and Earth Gate Tao Te Ching, Southern Gu Technique, Star Body Training Technique. Specialties, Advanced Cooking Skills, Advanced Acting Skills, 5 Elements, and Bagua, slightly dabbled in. Charisma, 68, out of 100. Mark, Royal True Dragon Spirit. The reputation value of this mission has dropped a bit, but because the original owner gave a blessing, the force value has increased by 2 points. I don't know if it is because I have done many missions, plus this time Tong Bei she also looks very beautiful, because her appearance has increased a bit. Although Lily felt that appearance did not matter, as the reputation value increased and decreased, it was equivalent to the attribute value maintaining the previous balance. Lily just glanced at it and did not take this increase or decrease to heart. On the contrary, Li Yangzi's expression at this moment a little too calm. She leaned towards Li Yangzi, thought for a moment and took his hand. "What's wrong?" "I'm not happy." Li Yangzi lowered his head. Pressing his forehead against Lily's hair, he whispered softly, "Zia, I'm very unhappy." For the first time, Lily felt that he had made such an action that was completely inconsistent with his usual behavior. He used to have a calm expression, as if everything was under his control. Lily remembered the first time she saw Li Yangzi, his for a moment, being so high above others seemed to be forever out of reach, but Lily never thought that one day he would use such a coquettish tone to say something he was unhappy about. At that moment, Lily could only hear his unhappy tone. He lowered his eyebrows, and his exquisite face was very close to hers. His breath blew on the top of her head, so close that she could see her own face clearly reflected in his dark eyes for the first time. This was also the first time Lily truly felt that she was close to him. In the past, the intimacy between the two always gave her a feeling of seeing flowers in the fog, and the impression of Li Yangzi's mysterious and powerful power has always remained in her mind. Even though she later accepted the change in their relationship, Lily still remained calm in her heart, so she respected Li Yangzi and was a little afraid of him. And because he was the only person who knew her secret, Lily relied on him a little, but never. Li Yangzi acted like a baby to him, and Li Yangzi was a calm and rational image in her mind. In fact, the feeling she left in Li Yangzi's mind was similar. But this time it was different. The side of him that had never been shown before made Lily's heart soften a little. She subconsciously reached out and hugged Li Yangzi's neck. An indescribable feeling lingered in her heart, going round and round. It made her feel a little itchy, but she didn't know what to do. Why? She saw her slightly red face reflected in Li Yangzi's obsidian eyes. This feeling had never happened before during the mission. Lily's eyelashes fluttered slightly, and Li Yangzi's face was getting closer and closer to hers. Her eyelashes touched her face, tickling slightly. "I don't like the fact that someone else is accompanying you when I meet you on a mission, and I don't want to be here all the time waiting for you to come back. I won't be able to get along with you for long. Sometimes, can I accompany you on missions?" His voice slowly disappeared. At the corner of her lips, Lily felt dizzy and vaguely felt that she had said yes. Men with indifferent temperaments are not scary. The most terrifying thing is that when a person who has always been cold behaves like a spoiled child, the feeling makes people unable to resist at all. It was as if she had a dream. In the dream, Li Yangzi was still asking her softly if she was okay. Lily only felt herself nodding. The next moment, it was like a thunder exploded in her ears. "Zia, take your brother away quickly." Lily was excited, and the beautiful scene in her dream suddenly disappeared. There was no Li Yangzi in front of her, nor was it the image in the starry sky. In fact, when Li Yangzi asked her if she wanted to, she was dizzy and agreed, and it didn't take long for her to be attracted by Li Yangzi. After being sent into the mission, she didn't come back to her senses at all. At this moment, Lily didn't have time to think about it anymore. Her body seemed to be injured, with ice and pain below her lower abdomen, and fires were already burning all around. Clang, the sound kept coming, and there were wailing and crying all around. The various sounds were intertwined and penetrated into her eardrums, giving her a somewhat sad feeling in her heart. She endured the discomfort she felt when she just woke up, and tried her best to open her eyes wide and support her body to sit up. The pain in her abdomen caused cold sweat to flow down her back. Due to the stimulation of the pain, Lily became a little more alert. She looked around and saw two groups of people fighting fiercely not far away. The clang sound just now was the sound of weapons clashing when these people were fighting. A fat man shouted 4 or 5 steps away from her. A boy about 5 years old was sitting on the ground, holding a corpse and crying. The sharp cry just now came from his mouth. Not far away, a middle-aged man whose whole body had been soaked in blood, and whose original color could not be seen, and whose hair was disheveled, raised his sword and tried his best to resist the attacks of several men in black. When he saw that his daughter did not when he moved, he couldn't help but drink again. Ziahe, take your brother and leave quickly. The Doe family will rely on you from now on, and Dad will wean the heir for you. The middle-aged man's hair was already disheveled, and his original appearance was no longer visible on his face. The house was burned and collapsed, and the splashed dust mixed with blood smeared on his face. Lily turned around and looked at one glance. This body instinctively shed tears. She blinked away the tears in her eyes, and then moved towards the fat child. This was naturally not a good time to receive the plot, but Lily felt this fat kid should be the younger brother the middle-aged man calls him. The situation at hand is very critical. If he stays here any longer, everyone's life may be in danger. This body is already injured. It seems like someone stabbed him in the lower abdomen. Although the injury is not serious, it wasn't fatal, but the pain and excessive blood loss made Lily tremble all over. When Lily subconsciously wanted to pick up the fat child, the fat man who was crying with snot and tears suddenly pushed her away and cried loudly, "I won't go, I won't go, I want my mother. Mother, mother." Lily was pushed and staggered. The child looked young, but his hands were quite strong. In addition, due to the injury of the original owner, Lily was suddenly pushed and sat down on the ground. There was no scab on the wound. It seemed that it was torn open again, and the excruciating pain made her shrink up the solace of her feet, and a warm liquid seemed to wet the hem of her skirt again. "Let's go," the middle-aged man saw all this and shouted. The people around him were attracted by his voice and gave up on their original target. They slashed at the little fat kid. When the middle-aged man saw this, seeing the situation, he rushed over and blocked these attacks with his body. A large amount of blood sprayed out, and Lily was splashed all over her face. The little fat man in front of her was still crying. Lily was a little irritated by the noise. He was still shouting, "I want my mother," and refused to leave. He was middle-aged. The man was chopped several times, and when he saw that he was dying, Lily cursed in her heart. If the middle-aged man fell, she would be helpless and would not be able to escape. Lily didn't want to care about this little fat man, but she didn't know if the child was related to the plot mission. She gritted her teeth and endured the pain of the wound, and stood up with difficulty to hug the child. The boy struggled desperately, kicking his legs wildly. A few blows even hit Lily's wound, making her tremble all over. "I won't leave, I want my mother, I want my mother." To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan Erwr. Chapter 599. The pain in her body and the critical nature of the mission made Lily pick up a brick that fell next to her after the house was burned down without even thinking about it, and hit the little fat man on the head with force, making a crisp sound. The little fat man's forehead quickly became red and swollen, and a bump appeared. "It's a ghost to ask for a nip." She threw the brick, and the little fat boy was obviously covered by the impact. His nose was dripping, and his tears were still dripping. He didn't cry anymore. Lily resisted the urge to throw him to the ground. The people in black around her were also stunned by her actions, as if they had forgotten to attack. Lily picked up the little fat man, turned around and ran away. Top. At this moment, everyone seemed to have come to their senses. The middle-aged man hurriedly turned around and stopped a group of men in black. He turned to Lily and shouted, "Run to the east, east." In the dark, Lily hurriedly broke into the woods and ran eastward in the direction of the stars in the sky. The sound of slashing came from behind. The middle-aged man seemed to have stopped a group of people. The little boy was held in his arms. After the fat man was stunned for a while, he started crying again, "Mother, mother, I want mother." His cries rang out in the originally quiet night, and the footsteps of the man in black chasing him gradually became far away. Lily breathed a sigh of relief, but did not dare to stop. The little boy in her arms started to cry. The sound spread very far, and the cry of a child asking for his mother could be heard from all around. Soon a group of people followed the sound, and obviously the middle-aged man failed to block the group of black people. Lily wanted to pull the little fat man in his arms, feeling ready to throw it out. She endured the pain in her belly and drank softly. "Shut up. If you keep arguing, I'll sew your mouth shut." Her fierce tone startled the little fat man. After being stunned for a moment, she opened her mouth and started crying even harder. Her voice was so sharp and harsh that the birds that were hiding in the woods all fluttered their wings and flew up. Lily was so angry that she reached out and raised her fist without thinking. Hit him on the head and shouted, "Shut up." The little fat boy was about to cry again, but Lily simply stretched out her hand and threw him to the ground. At this moment, the boy's clothes were covered with blood, but most of it was caused by Lily's injury to his body. He himself was not injured. At this time, when Lily threw him to the ground, he was startled and did not dare to cry anymore, and got up shivering. "Over there," someone shouted in this direction. Then the footsteps sounded again. And getting closer and closer. The little fat man began to feel scared. "Sister, sister." Lily endured the anger in her heart and stretched out her hand. The little fat man still wanted to climb on top of her, but Lily had no strength at this moment, so she just took his hand, pulled him and started running forward. Following the middle-aged man's words, she ran towards the east as fast as she could. However, it didn't take long for Lily to realize that something was wrong. The night wind in front of her suddenly became much stronger, and there were overgrown weeds all around. When she took the next step forward, she stepped on her body. Lily was so frightened that she couldn't help but curse again. There was a cliff below. This time, she and the little fat man flew out. She subconsciously hugged the little fat man in her arms tightly. The people rolled down the cliff together with the mud and sand. After falling into the cliff, she vaguely felt something soft and cold blocking her fall. When she woke up again, Lily felt that her body was hanging in mid-air, and hissing could be heard from all around her. The sound was like a mountain pressing down on her. Because she was injured yesterday and lost too much blood, she was too nervous to feel uncomfortable at the time. Only now did Lily suffer. She suppressed her dizziness and tried hard to hold on. She stood up, but she didn't have the strength to move her fingers. Her body was soft, as if there was a meat cushion, and there was a warm touch from the thing pressing on her back. It must be the little fat man pressing on her. Lily, just when she was about to shake him to the ground, this tiny movement made her so uncomfortable that she almost vomited. She didn't know who the group of people who were chasing her last night were. Lily thought of the murderers who killed many people in the plot and would look for them at the bottom of the cliff the next day even if someone slipped through the trap and fell off the cliff. She bit her tongue firmly. Feeling a sharp pain, her mouth was filled with the taste of blood. Lily finally woke up a little. She rested for a while, and after gathering her strength, she knocked the fat man to the ground first, and then opened her eyes. "Open your eyes." It was only at this glance that Lily saw a green thing not far away that she thought was a branch move. When the snake's head turned around, a pair of cold eyes stared at her, causing cold sweat to break out on her back. "There are many snakes here. There are snakes hanging everywhere on the trees, and there are also snakes in the grass. When the little fat man was lifted off the tree just now, he crushed the snake in the grass. Now you can see a gray-black snake's tail moving under him. Move." Lily calmed down, and the Zuyeking who was disturbed by her did not come to bite her. Instead, he hesitated and bowed his head in submission and lay still on the treetop. The cushion beneath her body was not a soft cushion at all, but a large dark green python coiled up in a coil. It had long since lost its breath, and its head was hanging under the treetops, with blood still hanging from the corners of its mouth. Drop. Fortunately, this unlucky python was the bottom, otherwise she might not have survived after falling all the way last night. Lily didn't care about the little fat man on the ground. The snake was already dead. Although the bamboo leaf green was a threat, she couldn't survive at the moment. She didn't have any strength, so she sat there and rested for a while, then tremblingly tried to climb down the tree. The little green snake hesitated for a while, twisted its body like a hemp rope, and followed her obediently. Lily looked at the snake warily for several times, then picked up a branch and tried to drive it away, but there were so many snakes here that it made people's scalp numb. Lily was not afraid of snakes. When she was making the goo she had to deal with these snakes, insects, rats and ants for a long time, but seeing so many snakes still made Leng's hair stand on end. She first picked up a few stones and took advantage of the natural advantages of the surrounding trees and grass to create a simple 5-element array. I don't know if it's because her mental strength is now high, so this formation is ready. After the wind blows, Lily sees the little fat man's body submerged in the grass and disappears. She breathes a sigh of relief and falls into the formation herself. Closed his eyes. The plot was poured into her mind one after another. Lily closed her eyes tightly. Only when she had absorbed all the plot, she breathed a sigh of relief and opened her eyes. This body's surname is Do. Do Beihi's father was originally a martial artist. In his early years, he worshipped the old man Zhu Ming and learned martial arts. He became famous as a chivalrous person in the world. In his middle age, he established the Do family villa. Because Do Beihi my father was very devoted to justice, so many people came and went to seek refuge with him. After the villa was established, friends from all walks of life were willing to help him, so within a few years, Do's villa became famous all over the world. Do Beihi was originally born to Do's father, Yuanpi's first wife. This Yuanpi's wife followed Do's father for more than 10 years, and she accompanied him in fear when he was young. It was only in middle age that Do became pregnant with a daughter like Do Beihi. Father was busy building Do's villa, and Mrs. Do worked hard with him. Her body gradually became exhausted. After giving birth to Lily Do, she almost stopped taking care of things. It was impossible for Do's villa to be without an owner for a day. A few years later, Do's father she married Jo, a well-known beauty in the world, as a side wife and took care of the housework for him. When Jo married into the Do family, Do Beihi was young and did not know the details of her net worth. She only knew that besides bringing her some maids who knew martial arts came and brought a baby girl named Jo Ruier. At first, some servants in the villa were gossiping that Jo Ruier was actually the child of Do's father and the Jo family in their early years. Damn it, these rumors didn't subside until Do's father tidied up the villa and drove away many people. Jo married into the Do family and gave birth to Do Haig within 5 months. Do's father was extremely happy to have a son. Thinking that in his early years, he had been wandering around the world fighting and killing, and now that he had a son and a daughter, he naturally did not want to let his children go. In order to accompany him through these bloody days, on Do Haig's 5th birthday, he decided to wash his hands and withdraw from the world. In the plot of the story, those who wash their hands in a golden basin will inevitably encounter misfortune. A group of men in black suddenly broke into the Do family that night and wiped out the entire Do family. Although the Jo family could not escape, under the desperate obstruction of Do's father, Do Bei hugged Do Bei. After her brother escaped, she fell into the cliff and saved her life. Even though she lost her parents, Do Bei still raised her brother Do Haig by herself. On the surface, Do Bei practiced martial arts diligently, but secretly she did not, forgetting the hatred of the Do family. She adopted a group of orphans, taught them martial arts, and established an organization called Dark Palace. She wanted to find out who was the enemy behind the destruction of the Do family and avenge her parents. When Do Haig grew up, Do Bei fell in love with a young hero from a well-known and upright family during the investigation. She originally thought about finding out who was the enemy behind the destruction of the Do family, and then disbanded after taking revenge. She married in a dark palace, but she didn't expect that when the Do family was exterminated, she was stabbed through the abdomen in order to block Do Haig's sword. Do Haig was very willful when he was young. When the incident happened, he cried endlessly and kicked Do Bei's injured leg. She suffered multiple injuries to her lower abdomen, causing her to bleed excessively, and the wounds were not treated in time, so she would never be able to have an heir of her own. After knowing the news, the young hero's family naturally objected. Do Bei knew the news and immediately broke off all contact with the hero. She suffered an accident when she was a child, and suffered such a blow as a girl. She couldn't bear to blame her brother, but from then on, however, her temperament changed drastically, and she became a little cynical. She began to want revenge wholeheartedly, and later handed over the power of the Dark Palace to her younger brother. The Dark Palace grew stronger and stronger, and many forces in the world felt that when some were threatened, they all began to join forces to suppress the Dark Palace. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 600. Almost everyone in the organization are orphans adopted by Do Bei and are loyal to her. Moreover, because of the hardships these orphans have endured, all of them practice martial arts very seriously and have high kung fu. They are much better than many famous disciples. Slowly. After slowly becoming famous, because the people in the Dark Palace were very persistent in investigating the fact that the Do family was exterminated, and their methods were too direct, there seemed to be another force in the world that was preventing them from investigating the truth of the matter. After going back and forth, I don't know why, the relationship between the Dark Hall and the people in the world became increasingly tense. In the end, the Dark Hall became what people in the world call evil heretics, and everyone was able to punish them. During that time, Do Bei had to break the Dark Palace into pieces and hide it. She was not an incompetent woman. She could raise her younger brother and start a family from scratch. After a man disliked her, she could break up with the man who disliked her. It is conceivable that Do Bei has a strong character. The more people in the world suppress her, the more tenacious she becomes. Coupled with her early experiences, her character became extreme. For these decent people who kept shouting to get rid of her, Do Lily no longer has a good impression, and naturally the reputation of the Dark Hall is even worse. However, the righteous people in the world organized themselves and failed to completely eradicate the Dark Hall organized by Do Bei. On the contrary, after some ordinary disciples were killed in the Dark Hall, all those who remained were elites. The strength seemed to be deeper, but as the number of deaths on both sides of the decent people and the Dark Palace increased, hatred began to slowly accumulate. In the past 10 years, the reputation of Do Bei, the master of the Dark Palace, has spread throughout the world. It is said that she has peerless martial arts skills, is as beautiful as a flower but has a ruthless heart. People outside describe her as a monster, but Do Bei puts her mind into it. Everything is focused on revenge for the people who died in the Do family villa. She wanted to find out the truth of that year, but when she finally found a clue, the Jianghu people found the headquarters of the Dark Palace and broke into the Dark Palace. Do Bei is very smart. Over the years, she has used the martial arts she learned from Do's father to become a peerless master by relying on her own abilities. She didn't take these people in the world to heart at first, but she didn't expect that when she was preparing to kill all the people in the world who broke into the Dark Palace, she found that she couldn't muster any internal strength. She had held it in her hand for 20 years, but the brother she loved as much as her own eyes appeared in front of her holding a girl's hand. The shouts of murder outside were loud, but the people in the Dark Palace were just like Do Bei. Being plotted, he had no ability to resist and allowed himself to be massacred by the Jianghu people. Do Bei personally picked up each of these orphans and taught them martial arts. She raised them up, but now these people died in front of her. When Do Bei was a little confused, Do Haig confessed to her. The girl holding hands next to him is named Jo Ruier. She is the baby girl Jo brought when she married into Do's villa. She is not Jo's biological flesh and blood, but the newly born daughter of Jo's sister. Jo Ruier did not die after the Do family's accident. She was taken away and she also figured out her identity. After she met Do Haig half a year ago, Jo Ruier recognized the son born to her childhood aunt and told his life story told him. Do Haig is not a biological child of Do's father. Do's father was a chivalrous man at first and received favors from a nobleman in the world. In the end, he became sworn brother with him. The nobleman caused some trouble at the beginning. He almost ended up being executed by the imperial court. Therefore, Do's father stood up for his brother at the critical moment, took his brother's wife back home as his side wife, and regarded Do Haig as his own flesh and blood. A few years later, the nobleman survived the crisis. He found out that his wife and children had been taken over by Do's father, and he thought he had betrayed his trust. He took possession of his wife and immediately hated the adulterer/woman to the core, so he killed the whole Do family. Jo Ruier was already older at that time, and the Jo family did not hide this from her. When the nobleman discovered Jo Ruier, he learned from Jo Ruier that he had misunderstood his brother. He immediately burst into tears. He killed his beloved woman, and then killed he has a whole family of brothers, but fortunately he heard that his son is still alive, so he has been looking for him over the years until he found Do Haig half a year ago. Thank you for your kindness in raising me over the years. My father and I have known each other. My father is ashamed of the old hero Do. I have recognized him as my adoptive father. My father has already collected the body of his adoptive father and buried it now. In the past, now that the matter has passed, I hope that my sister will give up and accept the sanctions from the martial arts comrades. Listening to these past events, the young man who had now changed his name to Gao Haig sincerely advised Do Bei to accept the criticism from the martial arts comrades. Sister, I have killed many fellow martial artists over the years, so I should stop. Do Bei didn't expect that the truth she had been pursuing would be like this when it was put in front of her now. No wonder she couldn't find out the cause of her family's death. This nobleman was a member of the imperial court and had great power. He had been there a few years earlier. He had been named the king of different surnames before and had a great reputation among the people. Just because of a misunderstanding, this man killed his family, and his family died. His younger brother, whom he used to regard as the closest person, actually thought that he would bury the Do family. It's over. Although Andean killed a lot of people, his martial arts colleagues also killed a lot of people in Andean. Do Bei felt very unwilling. She couldn't guard against anyone else, but she couldn't guard against this younger brother. She thought she was the only one with blood, but in the end she found out he is the son of an enemy, and his family perished because of him. Now he is even more righteous in killing his relatives, and Do-Bei is speechless. What chilled her even more was that after Do's father washed his hands in the golden basin, he originally stopped welcoming his martial arts colleagues, but the nobleman pretended to be injured and was rescued by Zhou Ruier into the Do family. With Zhou Ruier's hand, he inflicted injuries on everyone in the Do family. Because Do-Bei and Do-Haig were young, they did not drink the problematic wine that night and escaped with their lives, but the rest of the family did not drink the medicine. All died cleanly. After the martial arts was restrained, the people from the Jianghu rushed in after killing the people from the Dark Palace, and they all said they wanted to put the demon girl to death. In grief and despair, Do-Bei cut off his muscles and died. It's just that she is very unwilling. She is unwilling to accept that Do's father is so chivalrous but ends up like that. These people who have done bad things are aloof and pretend to be a gentleman. She was living in the world when she was young. She struggled to survive and wanted to take revenge. Find out the truth of the year. But she was beaten as a witch and everyone had to punish her. She loves her brother so much that when their family broke up, Do-Bei snatched the food from the vicious dog's mouth. I was so hungry that I couldn't bear to eat and wanted to share it with him. The younger brother who was holding it in my palm finally killed him because of a so-called biological father. She forgot the kindness to the Do family and her kindness in raising him, and instead stood on the side of righteousness. And she was harmed by Do-Haig all her life and could not stay with her beloved. As a woman, not even able to have heirs. Do-Bei felt very unwilling. She wanted to take revenge. She wanted to make the nobleman pay the price. Although the Do family could not be resurrected, she was not willing to accept why the nobleman could get an excellent son back and live a happy life after her own family was ruined. After absorbing the plot, Lily sighed and blinked. Opened your eyes. Do-Haig is lying on the ground at the moment, unconscious. When he fell from the cliff yesterday, even if he used Lily's body to cushion his back, Do-Haig still suffered some injuries. The wounds on his face now, Lily glanced at him with some disgust. She didn't accept the plot yesterday, otherwise she would definitely not have taken this little fat man with her if he died in the hands of those men in black. This time Do-Bei's revenge was mostly avenged. Lily moved her body. When she put her hand on the ground and wanted to get up, when her palm touched the grass, she felt something cold and fleshy. She quickly raised her palm and saw several small snakes coiled up and leaning against her. Around. The little snake held down by Lily's hand did not run away, but instead stuck out its tongue. The body twisted around, like a beautiful and bright rope, and swam to Lily's thigh. She timidly touched Lily's thigh with her head, and then retracted her head. Her small, dark, bean-like eyes were bright. It looked like this. Lily couldn't help but laugh. I don't know where this place is. It is completely different from the cliff where the original owner fell in the plot. In the plot, the original owner also listened to his father's words and ran eastward, but Do-Bei was being chased by someone at that time, and he was already panicking. In addition, she was blinded when the accident happened. She was bumping around like a headless chicken. She also fell to the bottom of the cliff, but not in this direction at all. As far as you can see, there are almost all snakes in the valley, but these snakes are not sure if they are stupid. When faced with someone falling, they are frightened and not only do not attack violently, but they quietly gather around. Lily is still seriously injured at this time. There was no antidote around me, so I had to sit cross-legged, hoping to recuperate quickly and find a way to leave this place when I had the strength. The original owner has now begun to practice martial arts with Do's father, but the time for practicing martial arts is not long. Because she is just a girl, Do's father himself did not want to hang around in the world anymore, and naturally he did not want his only one. His daughter was also wandering in the world and suffering hardships, so he did not teach her seriously. In Father Do's view, girls would get married sooner or later when they grow up. When the time comes, Do-Bae will only need to be able to care for her husband and raise her children, and serve her parents-in-law throughout her life. She was supposed to be a heroine. In the plot, the reason why Do-Bae later became a top master in the world was all because of the internal skills that Do's father had accidentally taught her and some of the moves she saw Do's martial arts practice. Figured it out by myself. She is amazingly talented and extremely smart. Finally, relying on these memories and some experiences from her early years in the world, she created martial arts suitable for herself and became a stronger master than her father Do. If it weren't for Do-Hae later acting as an internal agent, he drugged her. When those gangsters broke into the dark hall, even if Do-Bae was outnumbered, it was impossible for these people to kill her on the spot. It would be easy for her to escape. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 601. The sound of snakes hissing and spitting out words could be heard from all around. It was so dense that it made people's back numb. The puncture wound in the lower abdomen last night was now scabbed, but when it fell from the cliff, it should have been broken. It broke, and was pressed heavily by Do-Hae when it fell. Although Do-Hae was not old, he was not light. If it hadn't been for the big python on the bottom yesterday, I'm afraid Lily's injury would have been even more serious at this time. She couldn't wait for this mission to be completed before she died. She endured the pain and pressed her body everywhere. The bones in her knees must have moved out of place, and there must be something wrong with her ribs. She pressed them. The excruciating pain made her shiver involuntarily, and she suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Lily came out, and something cold next to her touched her. Lily turned around with difficulty to look, and saw a snake about the thickness of a child's wrist with a red body. It was holding a bunch of mud-stained snakes in its mouth. The herb was thrown in front of her, and as if she felt Lily looking over, the red snake spit out the letter and shrank its head back, then disappeared into the grass again. In the plot, Do-Bae was seriously injured after falling off the cliff, but she didn't care about getting herself sick. When the Do family was exterminated that day, things happened so suddenly, so she didn't bring any silver with her. It depends on the situation. The doctor couldn't do it either. In the end, she found a wooden board to tie up her broken leg. She sacrificed her face as the eldest lady of Do's villa and worked as a beggar for a while to ask for some money before she healed Do-Hae's injuries. In the end, Do-Hae got better. Do-Bae gave him a back rest when he fell from the mountain, and his old injuries were treated in time. He was originally only injured from a fall, plus he was young. Therefore, he recovered quickly after taking the medicine and taking good care of it. However, Do-Bae's injury worsened because of the sword wound he had received. She had to straighten the broken leg bone by herself. Later, no matter how advanced my martial arts training was, it still had sequelae. Once it was cloudy and rainy, my knees would be in unbearable pain. Not to mention the lower abdomen, I have lost the right to be a mother. Although Lily had not thought about getting married and having children during the mission this time, it was one thing that she did not want to get married and have children, and it was another thing that her body was damaged due to injuries in an accident. Lily pinched the herbs that the little snake had placed. There was still wet mucus on them, which was a little slippery to the touch. There was dirt on the roots of the grass, and some of the leaves had been bitten by the snake. She didn't know what the herb was. Lily simply put the herb aside, bit her lip, and touched her staggered leg bone. It was already swollen, and she felt numb at first, and then felt a stinging pain. She was cruel and pulled her leg that could not move at all to straighten it. There was a soft click sound of the bones, and the indescribable pain caused cold sweat to burst out of Lily's back instantly. Her knees now felt pain, and it didn't look like they were numb just now. She endured the pain and touched it. The originally misaligned bones had now returned to their original positions. Lily breathed a sigh of relief and then moved her hand away tremblingly, not caring that there were snakes all around her. He fell to the ground on his back. I was originally afraid that someone would use the 5 elements and Bagua technique to blind my eyes. In the end, it didn't work at all. I don't know if it was because there were too many snakes in this valley, or because the people sent by the nobleman to chase Lily thought that the bottom of this valley was full of snakes, and most of them were venomous snakes. The nobleman thought that Lily and the two might not be able to escape at all, so no one came until after dark. The valley is almost entirely filled with snakes. Throughout the day, many snakes bit her a lot of herbs and fruits as if they were paying tribute, but she did not dare to eat or use them. Many of these snakes were beautiful in appearance, but the more beautiful they were, the more poisonous they were. These snakes did not bite when they saw her, but shrank aside in fear. Even if they encountered her, they would quickly move away. There were many things piled around her all day long. Lily did not understand that she had neither. There is nothing in the poison to make snakes afraid, but these snakes just show human fear. The sky is getting dark, and the surroundings are very cold. There are many snakes in the valley here, so you can't even hear the sound of birds. Being with such a group of cold-blooded animals, it seems that the night is a little colder. Lily can straighten her bones by herself. Her legs are a little inflamed. The originally slender legs are swollen to the thickness of a bowl. When pressed, a fingerprint will appear. This cannot continue. Not to mention that her legs may still have sequelae due to delayed treatment. More importantly, there is a possibility of catching a cold. Dohag didn't wake up either. Yesterday, Lily picked up a brick and slapped him on the forehead in desperation. Now it was swollen. He had started to have a fever and started talking nonsense. A group of snakes probably didn't like this. The scalding heat instinctively moved away from him. Lily was lacking warmth at the moment, so she clung to him. Lily thought about finding a way to leave the valley, but the injury she suffered when she fell yesterday was too serious. When she woke up in the morning, maybe because of nervousness, she didn't feel much pain at that time, and now she couldn't even move at all. The pain was so painful that she instinctively shed tears. Naturally, she did not dare to move. She had been hungry all day. She thought that if she continued to stay in the valley, her condition might continue to get worse. She had not drank water all day and now her lips were trembling. It had already dried up and cracked. Lily hesitantly reached out and touched a few fruits bitten by the snakes, wiped them on her clothes, and used her teeth as a fruit knife to bite off the peels and throw them away. She felt a little more at ease. Bite the fruit and eat it? She was so hungry that she ate all the fruits. She gritted her teeth and picked up the herbs. Regardless of what kind of medicine they were, she chewed them experimentally and applied them to her wounds. She spent the whole day trying them. She slowly fell asleep. When she woke up the next morning, the medicine on her knees had dried a little, and the redness and swelling had subsided a lot. The herbs yesterday were indeed effective. She felt relieved. There were few things, in addition to herbal fruits, there were also a few strangled birds, mice, and other small animals. Lily didn't eat these things. She picked up the fruits and just bit off the skin. Dohag suddenly made a sound and slowly woke up. Lily didn't care about him. She took the packed fruits in one hand, then replaced the medicine on her knees with new ones, and applied some on her ribs. She lay down without daring to move. After doing all this, after eating all the fruits picked up by the snakes, Dohag shivered and slowly sat up. Sister? Sister? He was so frightened the night before yesterday, and was hit with a brick by Lily, and then fell off a cliff. He had a high fever all day yesterday, and he didn't die without any treatment or medicine. He was considered lucky. Lily couldn't help but blinked when she thought of the scene in the plot where the original owner was deeply afraid that something might happen to his only brother and ignored her efforts to hire a doctor for him after the Doe's villa was destroyed. Sister Dohag had a high fever and sweated last night. Now he is much better. He did not suffer any major injuries, because most of the injuries were almost all blocked by Lily. He was just too frightened at most. If he hadn't had a high fever yesterday, he should have woken up yesterday. After waking up now, Dohag got up and turned his head to look at Lily. There was a bit of fear on his face, but he relaxed when he saw Lily. He took a breath, then turned his face again, stretched out his foot and kicked Lily hard. "Lily Doe, why don't you say anything? I'm going to file a complaint with my father." Although his kick did not hit the wound on Lily's broken leg, it did make her newly reattached broken leg dangle, causing Lily's face to turn pale in pain. They were all a little twisted. After coming back to their senses, Lily took the fruit core in her hand and smashed it at him. "Shut up." Because Dohag was not Doe's father's own flesh and blood, but his sworn brother's son, in order to repay his brother's loyalty, Doe's father truly treated Dohag as if he were his own child, and treated him many times better than Doe-Behi. Doe's father once It has been said more than once that Doe's father will prepare a dowry for Doe-Behi when she gets married, but the Doe family villa built with his lifelong efforts will be passed on to Doe-Hai's singer. This shows that Doe's father likes Dohag. Dohag, who grew up in such an environment, naturally wanted to get wind and rain. Doe's father almost did not hold him above his head to show how much he valued him, and developed Dohag's indulgent and willful temper. In the plot, Dohag did not restrain his eldest son's temper after the accident in the Doe family. Sometimes Lily Doe would put down her pride and beg for food for him, but he would not eat it. Instead, he thought it tasted bad and would not even touch Lily Doe's food. When the food was spilled, Lily Doe was still coaxing him, until one time he saw his sister kneeling in front of others with a broken leg. They threw a copper plate to her, and she kowtowed happily to thank her, just to save some money. It was only when she saw a doctor for him that he was truly touched. From then on, he changed his bad temper and became well-behaved, smart, and gentle. It's a pity that the children that Doe-Behi worked so hard to teach ended up taking advantage of others. The nobleman killed the brother and his family who saved his wife and children, and finally got a son who was both good in character and academics. No wonder Doe-Behi felt unwilling to do so in the end. Lily is not ready to pamper him like the original owner at this moment. Not to mention that she doesn't have a good impression of Dohag after accepting the plot. Even if it is Dohag as an adult, it is different from Dohag who is still a child at this moment. She just doesn't accept it. Lily will not indulge him in the plot. "If you want to sue me, I will smash you to death twice, and you will go to the underworld to sue." After Dohag used the trick just now, he didn't expect Lily to hit him with something. In the past, he was the boss in the Doe family village, and he had also played pranks on Doe before. Lily, there were times when Lily Doe was so angry that she cried, but whenever Lily Doe cried, what Father Doe always said was, "You are the sister, you have to let your brother go." To be continued.